welcome to Movie Review Mom. And if this is your very first time, welcome. You found me. I hope that you like what you see and that you'll stay. And of course, subscribe. I would also love it if you would comment down below if you've seen this movie that I'm going to talk about today and what you thought about it. I was sent a screener from the studio, and so now it's released and now I can talk about it. So today, the movie I'm reviewing is Skyfire. The movie is rated PG-13. It's 97 minutes long. And the movie review mom grade I'm giving it is a C. And I will explain why. First, in a nutshell, you may have noticed a lot of Chinese influence in movies lately because Hollywood has been trying to tap into the huge Chinese market. Well, this fun action movie is a collaboration between Screen Media and a Chinese film company, Tao Films, that would love to make it big in the American market. The movie is directed by British filmmaker Simon West, who also brought us Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, and Con Air, among other action flicks. So imagine blending Jurassic Park with Dante's Peak, and then add a few hot peppers from the Sichuan province of China, and you get a disaster movie that features a resort built on an erupting volcano. That's it. That's basically the movie. Let me give you some quick tips for parents. The movie is in Chinese, so you have to read a lot of subtitles and quickly, I might add. There's lots of destruction, as you can imagine. It's a disaster movie. There's a very high body count with some blood and people in very dangerous situations. Now, some positive themes that are actually illustrated in the movie are the power of Mother Nature, greed, humanity, family, working together, and listening to others. So let me tell you about all the things I liked before I tell you about some of the things I didn't like. First of all, I love China, and I've traveled there many times for both business and pleasure. I love the people, the food, the topography, and so many other things about the country. And in fact, the very first time I went to China, I was actually invited to go on a speaking tour. And I asked if I could bring my two youngest sons with me because they're break dancers. And the company that paid for me said, of course, they can perform after I'm done doing all my boring speaking. And it was a hit. And we just got treated like royalty. The kids performed, and after our little presentation, we would be surrounded by excited fans who wanted our autograph, wanted to take pictures with us. It was so much fun. I mean, who wouldn't like doing that? And so we all fell in love with China. My very youngest son went back to teach English in China at a school for about a year and a half. And then my other son actually immediately started learning Mandarin and ultimately married a lovely girl from Hong Kong. They're expecting their first baby in April. So I'm so excited for them. And it's going to be my permanent souvenir from China, so to speak. Now, if anyone could build such a remarkable structure as this giant theme park on the edge of a volcano, it definitely would be the Chinese. I walked on glass bridges that were hanging over precipices of mountains and was amazed and marveled by the architecture. So that part of the story is very believable. There is lots of nonstop action that could really get your heart pumping, especially if you watched it on a big screen at a movie theater with lots of people and a great sound system. Most Americans will only recognize one of the actors in the movie. He's actually a British actor, Jason Isaacs, who can always be counted on to play a ruthless villain. I just love him. And I loved his performance in The Patriot, one of my all-time favorite movies. And of course, Lucius Malfoy in all of the Harry Potter movies in that fantastic franchise. Other lead actors in the movie are Chinese or have Chinese heritage. So let's see if I can pronounce these words. I'm trying to learn Mandarin, but I'm terrible at it. So One is Shui Shi Wang, Hannah Quinlivan, that sounded kind of American, Shan Dao, An Bai, Lin Chen Ji, and Liang Shi. How's that? They were all new to me. And there were some really bad acting moments, but it was fun to be introduced to these actors who I imagine are probably pretty popular in China. There is actually really great theme music that I enjoyed, and some of the special effects are good, others are just terrible. And I'll talk more about that in just a minute. There was this one character who made me laugh every time because he didn't speak English. All he knew how to say was, yes. Now, of course, those who spoke English actually did a pretty good job, and they speak English way better than I can speak Mandarin. During the rolling credits at the end of the movie, you get to see footage of how they filmed the movie, which is something I always think is super cool, as well as watch a video of a Chinese band. So that's kind of fun, really gets you in the flavor of it all. There really isn't very much humor to balance out all of the drama, but a tiny, tiny bit. They tried, I think. Fun fact, the movie was actually not filmed in beautiful China, but in beautiful Malaysia. Now, for the things that I didn't like, you can tell that the Chinese have tried to follow the very successful American blockbuster formula for disaster movies, but this one just didn't quite hit the mark. Still, if you get a kick out of disaster movies, it'll do for now. It's basically a bunch of good looking millennials and Gen Zs who saved the day by dumb luck, really. There are a lot of things that make absolutely no sense, and the movie defies physics, I can say, starting off. For example, there's this volcano, it erupts, and there are these two people standing right next to each other, and one of them survives and the other one dies. And there's a lot of that in the movie where you're just kind of rolling your eyes like, okay, whatever. So, what's ridiculous about the premise is who would build a resort on the edge of an active volcano? Now, there's an expert who believes that it will not erupt for 150 years. But even still, if you're going to put that much money into a resort, you wouldn't pick the edge of a volcano, I'm thinking, right? And then, even worse, what kind of people would pay money to stay in a resort at the edge of a volcano that has been known to erupt and kill people? I just think that's crazy. Yeah, there are crazy people in the world who would do it, but the premise is just pretty ridiculous. And most of the scenarios are just absolutely laughable. Because most of the CGI is pretty bad, you just don't often feel that the characters are in real danger. The green screen effect makes a lot of the action sequences just look super cheap and cheesy, even though this was a pretty big budget movie for the Chinese market. There's this super awkward kiss between Mr. and Mrs. Harris, which makes the actors look like they're playing a role in a movie rather than really believing that these are real people and you get caught up in their characters. It's really hard to connect with the characters because, first of all, you have to read subtitles really fast. You can either become engaged in the action or you can read the subtitles. You can't really do both at the same time. So the characters are just cliched tropes we've seen in a million American disaster movies. And like in all disaster movies, there are many characters who just make terrible decisions. The movie takes itself way too seriously, so dramatic moments are just kind of laughable. There are lots of illogical escapes from danger, super cliched plot points. Some of the dialogue is really weak. And there's this super cheesy romance side story that attempts to mimic the one in the volcano disaster movie Pompeii. I don't know if you ever saw that one. It wasn't great, but there was some action, and I guess you could say you learned a little bit about Pompeii. And then there's this cliched fake out death scene that you can see coming a mile away. You know, someone dies and you're like, oh no. And then all of a sudden they're back. So some of that kind of stuff, Americans will just roll their eyes at and just think it's silly. But again, there's enough action that you can have a good time if you just kind of ignore some of that kind of stuff. Now, normally when I review movies, I write down the funny lines or the inspiring, insightful lines, and then I post them on my moviereviewmom.com. But with this movie, I think I was so busy trying to pay attention to what was going on that I didn't write down any of them. And it also is because there were really no funny lines that I can remember. And also no big standout moments. There are relationships that are mended and there's some conversation about that, but nothing that I really felt like it gripped me and I had to write it down to share it with you. Now, before I go, let me give you some recommendations for some other disaster movies that I think you might like if you like this one. First of all is Dante's Peak. That was kind of the first big volcano disaster movie, at least that I remember seeing. And when I was growing up as a little girl, a lot of the disaster movies were brand new with Dolby theater stereo systems that made the room kind of shake. I remember seeing the movie Earthquake, Towering Inferno, Poseidon Adventure, and those kinds of classic disaster movies. And those are the classics that all the rest have been built upon. The things that worked in those movies we've now seen repeated many, many times, including Dante's Peak. Again, it wasn't a great movie, but if you like volcanoes and are curious how that affects people, you can check that one out. I already mentioned Pompeii. Again, not fantastic, but volcano. And then the most recent disaster movie to hit the big screen or online streaming because of COVID is a movie called Greenland. And there were actually a lot of things I did like about that movie. So check that one out. And it stars Gerard Butler. I know he kind of is in a lot of disaster movies, isn't he? Okay, that's it for my review today. I hope that if you watch this movie, you get a kick out of it, laugh, have fun. And I would love to see your comments below as to what you thought about the movie. Thank you so much for subscribing. And a big special thank you to those of you who are going over to my Patreon page to support me over there. All right, that's it for today. I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.